Yes, there's polarization. Yes, there's all of that.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today, as usual. And we don't just say that, we have it. But today, I'm going to start off. First of all, welcome aboard Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. Welcome aboard Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome aboard AVQ from Brooklyn, New York. And where are my other peeps? I guess we are coming in fairly slow. We are coming in fairly slowly today. But anyhow, we are going to have a good one. Before I read, though, I have to go off and do something real quick. But I have a rant that I did this morning at KPFT that I want to play. And as soon as we get back from that rant, we'll continue with the programming. But here it is, and then I will be, as you know what they say, I'll be back.
Yes, there's polarization. Yes, there's all of that. But when we start talking about policy and topics, people generally agree on most things. You throw abortion in there, you throw gasoline on a whole lot of lit lots. But if you start talking economics, you find out that most people kind of believe the same things, especially when kind of coaxed into the context. And that's what I want to do this morning, coax into the context. Our economic system is not divine. In other words, it wasn't God or some. If you believe in God, God didn't put it here. If you believe in some supreme being, that supreme being didn't put it there. A whole bunch of people, some, leaders in some countries decided how it's going to operate. We get a, monetary exchange system and all these things that were in our several last 100 years created by Western countries, but it has always been there. There's always been Mesopotamia. There's always been the Ottoman Empire, and all these different folks had their own systems that, worked, didn't work, etc. But we've had a long-standing system with the Industrial Revolution. And look, I'm not a historian or an expert in all of that, but all of us have the ability to see how things are working if we choose to do so. So we have a particular type of economic system that we run by. And this economic system right now is not working for most. And we have a tendency to put these kinds of blames on a politician or something like that. In this case, Biden is in power and we throw it on to Biden. The reason why we're having such economic situation. And the truth of the matter, it is never the case. The case is always those who control capital, who have power, are the ones who have constantly done and created policies that keep them in power. Everybody does that. People say, well, that's human nature. Yeah, that's human nature. But human nature as well is that most people are not greedy. I don't know for everybody who watched the movie Wall Street back in I think it was back in the 90s, early 90s or late 80s. Remember Gecko? Gecko came out and says, greed is good. And they gave you the impression that everybody's greedy and that because everybody's greedy, that's the reason why you needed a capitalist system, because the capitalist system doesn't have heart. But what it does have is the ability for greed to reign, right? It's always about maximizing the dollar, making as much money as you can. And if you don't do it, somebody else will, etc. And that greed is what drives us. And it's easy to disprove that, right? It's easy to prove, first of all, that that's a lie, though we all say it and believe it. Greed is good. Greed is what makes things go around, etc. If that were the case, think about this. We wouldn't. The vast majority of the people in the world, and let's just use America as a whole, the vast majority of Americans won't allow 1% of Americans to screw them, because in their greed, they would not allow others to be more greedy than they are, or that they could, or that they would. Most people just want to go to work. They get up in the morning, they want to go to work, be able to pay their bills and live a life. Most people want to have either a family life or a party life or whatever. They just want to make enough to survive. Greedy, they're not. Greedy are the psychopaths, however. Greedy are the psychopaths who eventually also control the system via their greed. And given that all of us just want a job, or when I say a job, whether it's one that we create ourselves or whether it's one working for somebody else. So in order for us to be able to change things, if we want to change things, we have to first stop believing the nuttiness, the silliness, that which is imposed on us as fact or somehow truly believe. No, most people are not greedy. Most people are not cutthroat. Most people, in fact, are good. Many of the folks, however, that walk on top of others to make it, no matter what, those are psychopaths. So what you find, and I hate to put it this way, but that person who is running away from taxes, that person who has $1 billion and is going to go back and support politicians who tell them, I'm not going to allow you, I'm not only going to allow you to hold on to those billions that you really didn't earn, but I'm also going to ensure that you don't have to put back some of those billions in the form of taxes. And those billionaires who support you then, so it shows the psychopathy. It shows the psychopathy of what I'm talking about. Because I'm going to use myself, yours truly. If I were ever to get $1 billion, well, I couldn't get $1 billion, because the truth of the matter is, as I started accumulating wealth, I would be throwing it out the door probably as fast as I'm getting it. Again, I am like most people, human. I'm like most people, just want to survive comfortably, but don't worship the mighty dollar proper, the wealth proper. I want to give back. The thing about it is also, I could not possibly, with my knowledge, with my work, with the things that I do, there is not a possibility for me to be a billionaire without having walked over, harm someone else, whether directly or indirectly, because my worth does not afford me the possibility to make that kind of money. An economic system, let me give an example now. If I had bought Tesla, Elon Musk's company that really didn't make him a billionaire, that he had to walk over others to make it. If I had bought that stock, I could have sat in my home and turned, let's say, $100,000 into, let's say, several million. Let's just, for argument's sake, say $1 billion. And one would say, well, look, you became rich and you didn't harm anybody to do it. You made a wise investment. To which I would say, yes, I made a wise investment. But to say that in my wise investment, I hadn't harmed anybody, forgets that, let's go ahead and use having bought Tesla as an example. I haven't harmed anybody directly, but there's something called abstraction, which is what capitalism is perfectly does. Abstraction means this. I have designed a system where I can profit, get very wealthy without directly harming anyone, but the institution itself that have afforded me the ability to be rich harmed a whole many. Let's go to the electric car or to Tesla or whatever. For me to have been able to build, or for Tesla to have been able to build that car, there are a lot of natural resources that were acquired throughout the world where one, people died to acquire it, children doing slave labor for rare materials, and many other systemic things of that nature. People working in some parts of the country producing certain types of things that harm themselves, that cause them ill, etc. So I got rich because the Tesla executives were able to get the working of executives in Pakistan, executives in Afghanistan, executives in Peru, executives in Ecuador, and all these places where all these different types of material come from. And by the way, I'm random using countries where they export some sort of material where people harm themselves and get in the materials for which we build things, for which the stockholder of these companies have enriched themselves and abstractly not harmed anybody, but abstractly do so. And then at the same time, having raised the billion from that big stock investment or whatever, where I've harmed nobody directly, when it is time to say, now I should want to pay a tax, I try to find every mechanism possible not to pay the tax, but to hold on to that wealth created by the design of an economic system that, yes, harm others, but abstractly hides the way in which it does so. Again, it's a matter of narrative and how the story is told. And we are told a story about how an economic system runs and why interest rates are high or low or where inflation comes from or not. And we sit down and we watch MSNBC, NBC, CBS, CNBC, and all these stations singing the same narrative. And we sit down and just play our part in the game and believe all that we hear. And anybody that disagrees, we have another group of folks who make it seem from the writings that they do that you are the one that something is wrong with you. You are the darn communist. You are the damn socialist. You are all these things that they make into a negative to ensure that this system that is designed for the psychopaths to succeed are fine. Now, I'm not talking about that baker who's a millionaire because they created a nice tasting bread that a lot of people like, and that they ultimately buy in and become rich. And when rich is relative, that millionaire, that's not who I'm talking about. Oh, that guy, that person is fine. If you work hard as hell, you deserve to make more than somebody who isn't working as hard. But after you have reached a certain amount of wealth, capital, etc., you are not doing it on your own. That wealthy baker eventually, yes, it's his flavor or her flavor and her magical way of using yeast and all of that. But eventually, as she grows, she's bringing in more people that are actually a part of making that. That if the economic model doesn't force a sharing because, well, I did that, I invented that, something is wrong. So when Sanders and Omar is leading, that is Bernie Sanders and Ilhan Omar, as this article points out, they're leading the drive to have a global tax, because what else the wealthy does is they take their monies and they hide it into places like the Caribbean, where affords them a zero tax rate just to hold their money at some fixed cost or whatever. We have to create an international mechanism so that those who have made their money on the backs of others, and that is every super wealthy person on this planet, doesn't get a chance to play country number one against country number two. It is so very important.
All right. All right, folks. So that was this morning, and it started off, yes, with the learning about what Ilhan Omar and Bernie Sanders are trying to do to get us to start supporting that global tax across all the countries to ensure that people can't hide their money. Again, remember what I said. Most of the money that any wealthy person has made, if you go down the machinations of how that money is made, it's made on other people's excess labor, the work that other people do. It's hard for some people to really get out of the false indoctrination the indoctrination that they've received through birth, but it's something that we have to work on. Anyway, let me. I had to leave for a minute when I played that video, but let me just go ahead and salute new folks into the crowd. We got Mike Cisak out of Missouri. We also have Eric Hayes out of Atascocita, Kingwood. We also have in the house May Wood from Long Beach, California. We also have Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you guys for being here. E2247 from everywhere. And of course, we've got in the house. If I missed you, it's because, well, the eyes aren't what they used to be. Michael Rudnin from Brooklyn, New York. Anyhow, Michael has a long one that he wants me to read. So here it goes, Michael. Egberto pardon a long one. Futurism. Experts fear horrifying heat waves that could kill tens of thousands of people at once. We could have the Hurricane Katrina of extreme heat on our hands. American cities are ill suited for the heat. The asphalt and concrete that dominate our infrastructure mercilessly intensify it, driving outdoor temperatures in urban areas up to an additional 20 degrees Fahrenheit on a hot afternoon. We have been ignoring the fact that we've trapped ourselves in metropolis scale frying pans thanks to air conditioning in our cars and homes. But the uptick in extreme weather attributed to climate change, plain old heat included, has continually put many cities' energy grids under threat. So, what happens when all those AC units suddenly lose power? If a blackout hits during a blistering heat wave, an absolute catastrophe, according to experts in an op ed piece for New York Times written by Jeff Goodell, author of The Heat Will Kill You First. In one such extreme scenario befallen an American city, over 10,000 people could die as the result of a single heat wave, sending hundreds of thousands more to the hospital. Brian Stone, study lead author and director of the Urban Climate Lab at Georgia Tech, told New York Times it doesn't really matter if the blackout is a result of cyber attack or a hurricane. For the purpose of our research, the effect is the same. How long until this happens? As global warming is accelerating and becoming the new normal, we're seeing so many more heat domes with repeated record breaking land and ocean temperatures. An increased rate of major hurricanes and the power grid can only handle so much, especially when the heat goes high and the demand exceeds capacity. And you know what is so funny? Look, we are there, right? We've sufficiently changed the climate that we're going to get these swings. And the truth of the matter is, we are still in a mitigatable state, right? What I mean by that is, yes, we're going to get more severe hurricanes. Yes, we're going to get more severe tornadoes, etc. But we can start building. Look, not building for the calamity that's about to hit us, right? But to do that, you cannot do it without creating a new economic system. And the reason why is there's no money in building a whole bunch of strong structures or whatever in places where in a system where randomly is where you will get hit, but it's done in a random fashion such that, hey, uh, it is more economical because of the value we put on human life. It's more economical, as the article puts out. I don't know if the article says this, but the way capitalism sees people is we have to do a cost analysis whether the insurance on 10,000 dead people exists the enormous cost of both reducing greenhouse gases as well as as well as building for this new type of climate. It's a shame, but everything it runs through our capitalist system. If you all remember, even during COVID, here we have this big pandemic, and what had to get straightened out first was not the research and the science, but who was going to profit from it. It's amazing how corrupt our economic system is, and it's amazing how we are indoctrinated into believing this is how things ought to be, or this is how things are supposed to be. Michael says, Egberto, the greed is a spectrum. Some people are greedier than others. True. People who can relinquish all positions are a rarity. That's true. But I mean, I'm not talking about the regular person that wants to have more. A lot of people go ahead and buy stocks with expectation that they will get a dividend and a capital appreciation. That is some level of greed. That is some level of making your money off of somebody's back. But it's one that we can all partake on in some sort of a manner. What we're talking about is the obscenity of the wealthy that makes money off of money and makes money off of not paying back into a system that they've extracted everything that they've had from. In effect, not paying taxes, not paying fees, etc. It is that simple. Eric is talking about the unsold inventory from Tesla. I guess uh, Mr. Tesla, Mr. Musk, is not that smart after all, so that he got a glut of over 45,000 Teslas sitting idle, right? You would think that he would know that if you're taking away people's excess monies, they won't go ahead and get a Tesla. You don't want to pay taxes. You don't want to invest in people's personal economies. You want to just take and take, and that's what Musk did, right? So it turns out to come back and bite your butt. Now let's give another scenario. Another scenario is as follows. You go ahead and support things like basic income. You support the subsidizing of the people who are working hard but need subsidies, which would also mean if you want to go electric, right, you actually support policies that government may have to subsidize further electric cars, let's say for the poor. It'll help them on not having that large energy bill on gasoline, etc., etc., etc. But these people oppose policies because they just want to take as much out of the poor and the middle class, not realizing that, and they're so smart, right? Not realizing that if we gave more money to the poor, if we gave subsidies to the poor, etc., to bring them a step higher, in the long run, it would be beneficial for a Tesla as well, because those 45,000 cars that you got in inventory would be gone so damn fast, and that's 45,000 less greenhouse gas emitting vehicles on the market. But you see, when you're indoctrinated by a silly, preposterous fallacy, you don't get good policy that can help everyone, including those who have stolen their wealth, like Musk. Even Musk would do well in if he decide, I am going to pay more taxes, I am going to support policies like basic income, I'm going to support policies that subsidize behavior so that we can do something about climate. Oh my God, talk about the explosion. But no, they just can't see letting the poor or the lower middle class or the middle class for that matter have anything. It's just the psychopathy that you hear me talk about a whole lot. The psychopathy of the wealthy. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Brother E2247 is in the house. He says, where olive trees weep. A 21-day journey begins. Ashira Darwash, Mauricio, and Zaya Benasso. He always have some great stuff from us. I guess that's a good movie, huh? Anyway, Michael also said, Egberto, legislature and judicial branches have often had the choice whether to rein in the corruption or loosen the regulations regarding corruption, and they have consistently chosen poorly because they themselves, Brother Radnin, are corrupt. All right, let's see what else we've got here. I'm looking to see if I see E2247 numbers, which we always like to point out, where he tells us about the current run There it is. Day 250. Casualty. Let me make sure I get started in the right place. Live, right here. Day 250 since 7 October 2023 equal 37,202 Palestinians killed, 401 persons more than day 245, at least 84,932 wounded, equal 122,134 casualties. And that is equal to an equivalent of 400 casualties a day, 489 casualties a day of an estimated 5.385 million population in the West Bank and Gaza. That's approximately 149 people per day being killed. 38% are kids and women. Wow. Were US to be in that situation, it would be an equivalency of 7.633 million Americans killed. Think about that. Think about that. Whenever they're talking in an antiseptic manner about what's going on in Israel, remember exactly what our complicity in that. Let's see what else we got here. Eric Hayes says Omar wants the tax money in her pocket. Do you have any evidence of that? Other than just blurting something out from the right, or maybe from the depths of your brain? Can you prove that statement? I doubt it. Sharing the wealth is called a salary for employees. No, it's not. A salary for employees is not sharing the wealth. Sharing the wealth is making sure that employee gets a salary commensurate with the production that they actually created. Okay, that's what it means. I know you've been indoctrinated, CSAC, into believing you are worth so little. I know that. I know you believe you're not worthy, brother CSAC. I know you believe that that executive is so much better than you. His blood is so much bluer than yours. But I'm here to tell you, I am your brother, not the executive. And I think more about you than you think about yourself. I have more concerns about you than your executive thinks about you. Your executive thinks that you are just another indentured servant. I say you should be gaining that which you created. So, brother CSAC, understand who your real enemy is. It's not the lowly progressives that are trying to make life better for all, but it's the person who looks you in the eye and tell you you're not worth it, not necessarily in those words, but in the acts that he performed. So don't forget that. Whenever you're doing that, Lizard Queen is in the house. Good afternoon, Lizard Queen. Great to have you here. Michael Rudden says offshore tax havens equal tax evasion, and the estimation is that 20 trillion is thusly squirreled away. Now imagine if we took about 20% of that. All our problems are over economic. That's the grand theft that we're talking about. 20% of $20 trillion is about 4 trillion. Think about what we could do with that over time. All right. Billy Allison Irwin is in the house. Welcome aboard. Billy, where are you from? You're from Houston, right? Mike C6 says leftists want people to cut back on their AC during the summer, but then want them to buy an electric car. Who wants them to cut back on their AC? They need their AC. I've never said anything about people cutting back on their AC at all. All right. Hayes says actually politics on right, Egberto. People are not buying electric. Whole market is off because they can't afford. Yeah, because and why can't they afford it? That's the entire explanation that I gave you. I gave that entire explanation about why, though there's nobody to buy them, because the people can't afford to buy them. They can't afford to buy new gas cars either. Come on, Mr. Hayes. At least look, Mr. Hayes. There's something that I would suggest that you learn how to do. You know, the brain has a membrane. The brain does. And I don't remember what my daughter told me it's called, but it's an impenetrable membrane. Very few chemicals can cross that brain divide. In other words, can get into the brain through this membrane. I forgot what the membrane is called. There are a few chemicals that can make it into the membrane, but there are most that the brain protects itself very well. Unfortunately, some people don't only protect the physical brain, but they protect the intellectual brain from bringing in new information, analyzing said information, and learning from that information. One of the things that I've always cherished myself on is being able, first and foremost, to say, I was wrong. Because, and you know why I was able, the most powerful thing one can say is that I was wrong. And let me tell you why that is so powerful. That means that you have the ability to learn. You can only demonstrate the ability to learn to somebody else after having said, I was wrong about that, I did not understand that, or I learned that. But if no matter what somebody tells you, fact based, if you continue to regurgitate the same stuff, irrespective of what you're told, that is like that brain, the blood brain barrier that my daughter talks to me about, that it's almost impenetrable. But there are chemicals that doctors, biologists, biochemists have found to break that barrier, and politics done right. I am hoping, as I'm messaging with politics done right, I am hoping that sometime I'll be able to do what's necessary to break that barrier. That barrier that has one focused on just what they think they want to believe, etc. But we've some of our progressive viewers have said and told me several times, Egberto, I just can't. You believe in bringing everybody into the home, which I do, and several of them have said I just can't deal with the people who are allergic to, uh, whose the truth is anathema to them, and there are several people that they continue to support, but they just say we got to do this stuff either one on one or in some other platform because too many of these people continue to just fail in the intellect in building their intellect. Welcome aboard, Lee Grant. I see you came in late today. All right, Carl Cox says, Gilberto, I emailed you an email with a link you can click on to see my entire graduation ceremony. All right, I'll check it out, Mr. Carl Cox. Eric Hayes, Mike Cisak believe in the God who loves the wealthy, tolerates the middle class, and hates the poor. Well, that's not what Jesus said. And if they were really Christians and followed the word of the Lord, which I used to be a Christian, they would learn that the one that Jesus gives the most attention to is the one many of them would consider the least of. But again, the practice of Jesus today is a different thing altogether. It has nothing to do with Jesus. Billy Allison Irwin says, people are so busy trying to blame a side and defending their side that they can't see. And that's why, Billy, I said, Eric has caught me in a few, Egberto, if you say this, how then? And I come straight up and I said, oops, you're right. You're right. But I'm watching and I'm picking on Eric right now. I am watching Eric right now. Eric would hear you make statements of fact. And once you got him cornered because he realized, oh, you're right, he can never say, oh, I was wrong there. He simply changes the subject and gets silent on the issue. That is what I'm talking about, that cellular divide. And that is what we should fix. And when we get blood-brain barrier, that's right, Lee Grant, and when we get that fixed, how fast we're going to go. Because while I'm picking on Eric for this. I could pick on everybody on issues like this. We have to learn to look in the mirror and say, you know what? On that issue, I was wrong. And I'll tell you something, and I promise this to everybody on the program all of the times. If you ever find me in error, I would be more than happy, and I have done before, and I want it to be widespread. Let me tell you how serious I take that statement. I have made mistakes on videos where I've said the wrong thing and somebody corrected me. And I've gone to those videos somewhere in the archive, edit those videos to make sure it's correct, and come on air, whether online on air or on KPFT or elsewhere, and say, by the way, that particular thing, I was wrong. That's powerful because we don't all know everything. And if we have the ability to keep our heads up high and still say, I was wrong, I'm corrected, I will never make that mistake again, and I move on from there. But it is so hard. And look at the response I get. I learned to avoid people that want to spew power opinions and gaslighting like current politicians. I mean, and then a lot of times you'll use AOC as an example. And the thing about it is, AOC is one of the smartest politicians out there. Republicans will tell you that. Republicans who are sitting down in committee meetings with AOC would say the one thing with AOC when she goes to those meetings, she is 100% prepared, and she is the one most knowing on the subject matter that they're discussing. She knows the history, she knows all these different things. Okay? It is amazing. But at the same time, you have the right wing creating stories about, oh, she's unhinged, etc. And I always ask, when they say that, please specifically tell me why is it you think this lady is incorrect on some issue. Nobody can say it, right? They just throw out a talking point. Learn how to say you're wrong. Learn how to say you are wrong. And that is something that we have to do at some point in time. So let's be clear here, folks. Let's be clear and do things right. Anyhow, let's see what else we have. Anybody give us a call. The telephone number is 281-823-7747. I think somebody just called me, but give us a call. 281-823-7747. I am taking calls. You can give me a call right this minute. 281-823-7747. In the house, we have Alizarin Dream. She says, I'm sorry, but what Eric makes no sense to me. Now he's talking about blood-brain barrier being penetrated by a vaccine. What the heck is he talking about? I'm going to have to block him. Don't block him. Don't block him. I mean, let me tell you something, okay? It is funny. But well, you do what you got to do. You do what you got to do. All right, let's see what else we got to say. Ecclesiastic says, Bible verse of the election year, Ecclesiastic 10:2. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. Do you want me to find other Bible verses, Eric? Do you really want to go to the Bible? All right. Mike Cisak says, Maywood, why don't you ask the typical mom and pop business owners what the problem they have are? None of the leftists have ever a clue. Actually, no, because I myself, I'm a small business, been a small business for a long time, including I've had to create an LLC for what I'm doing here. I've gone to pizza shops, Chinese restaurants, and all these other places and have found out what the problems are. And the problems are the same thing that the average American citizen is going through. Inflation, high prices, all right, and no good support for the people that they want. So no. I mean, those of us progressives do talk. Progressives do talk. So folks, give me a call. 281-823-7747. One more time. 281-823-7747. 7747. We're taking calls. All right, so let's see what else we got here. Para ver. Lee Grant says we need to correct our thinking about the China virus. I don't know what that means, but maybe you'll tell me. Eric K says AOC tells people she will be arrested. Why? You want me to tell you why? Because Donald Trump said he would do that. Donald Trump says he's coming after the media. Donald Trump says he's very, I mean, and Rachel Maddow said the same thing as well. Let me tell you my own thoughts, okay? My own thoughts is if Donald Trump becomes president and all of those of us who are not fearful in speaking, what happens to us? You know? So no, Eric, I don't think AOC said anything wrong when she made that statement at all. Billy Allison Irwin says, you do a great job keeping things straight, or we wouldn't all listen most shows we can. I thank you for that, Billy. You know what has really exploded my the people listening to the show on podcast. I wish I had more live viewers though, but that requires the time at 3 p.m. That is a time where a lot of people are working, not able to do this stuff. Because our 6 o'clock, which I thought wouldn't get a whole lot of airtime, but our 6 o'clock in the morning on over the air, I mean that goes berserk, both on the streams, our KPFT streams, as well as on air with people listening. That in real time that goes that is a whole bunch of people. But even more is the podcast when the podcasts go up. I process it after and do it on the podcast. And I'm actually syndicating it for free, of course, to all the stations in Pacifica, which means it has a potential to be on over 200 stations. So we'll see how that works out. But again, like I said, I'm doing all this stuff for gratis. The thing is that we want the message out. We want people hearing the message. So we want as many people carrying it as possible in real time. All right. Lee Grant says, I'm interested in the truth and how people can easily be misled. It's not about feelings. And you're right about that. You're right about that. Let's see. Marxist for Biden says, if there is a Trump purge, highly likely, do you think they will come after the little guys like you? Absolutely. But they'll come at us. Your question, brother Marxist for Biden, is will they come after you? The answer is yes. Brother Ray Brackens, come on in, my brother. Talk to me.
Hey, Egberto, just making sure this phone line still works.
I appreciate that. I got to make a change right here to the speaker system so that we don't get any feedback. I'm doing that right this minute and it's done. Anyway, talk to me, dear brother Ray.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out when are they going to let this clown when are they going to put him down to actually say he can't run for president? I don't know. But I just came I'm actually a little congested. I just came from a 3-day trip I had up in Chicago. Beautiful weather up there, by the way.
You were telling me that on KPFT.
Yeah, so anyway, I was sitting in a group of people, and this is a bunch of like-minded, left-minded people, and we had to try to come to agreement if we even would support Biden if it was against, fascist forces, and even in that realm, we couldn't come to agreement. But one thing I thought about is I was listening to another YouTube newscaster that I'm kind of independent like yourself, and he had an activist from Louisiana named Gary Chambers. And Gary Chambers was talking about voting in a sense of what I believe. Voting is basically it's a business transaction. And the way people, always vote with their emotions, the thing about it is that the Trump people has figured this out a long time ago. When they vote for Trump, yeah, they might, some might find him charming and like his bombastic, but a lot of people find him to be a friggin' idiot, and they don't like him. They just vote for him transactionally, because they know what they can get from him. And I feel like a lot of progressives tend to, forget that voting for somebody is not a blind endorsement of their policy or their character. It is simply the order of business that must take place in order for a person who is seeking a job in public office has to go through. And as a constituent, we are the bosses who are supposed to sign off on this person to say whether they deserve a chance to do the right thing. We're just saying they deserve a chance. We're not saying that they're going to blindly just do the right. And that's the thing I hear about, with people who vote Democrat tend to not remember that you're voting for this person, not because you blindly just believe they're going to do everything they say they're going to do, but that that you can hold them accountable. And one thing I don't get about a lot of people that say, well, if Trump wins, so what? What do you mean, so what? If Trump wins, that basically closes the door for any idea of progressive policy to go through. I mean, if you hated the policies of Donald Trump, then, I mean, why would you even, if you love the policies of Bernie Sanders, why would you even think to let Donald Trump in? And I'm going to leave that rant on this because it's like a lot of people that hate Biden for all intents and purposes need to remember, if you want progressive policy, remember Biden and Bernie are in agreement that he would at least accept some progressive policy because he needed those voters from Bernie. So if you let this clown Trump in, then you could kiss all that connection, all that progressive policy that we had a chance at, that Bernie actually was pushing to Biden. You could kiss all that goodbye. That's all I'm gonna say on
No,
that.
before you go, I want to commend you first of all. That is a very mature statement. That is a statement that sees the entire picture, and that is why we need you doing exactly what you did out there in that meeting. People, I try to explain. I am not voting for Biden. I'm voting for all the permutations and things that will occur because it's Biden and not Trump in that Oval Office. That's all. I don't particularly like Biden, but I understand exactly what you articulated better than anyone else, and that is following something that Republicans have learned all along, and that is they will even vote for a convicted felon for their particular purposes. Imagine that. Even a convicted felon would get their vote, but it's deeper than that. In that, what they don't understand is that the person who best gives them the policy that makes their lives better are the ones that they're voting against. So the thing about it, Ray, is the following. I will keep doing this, and I urge you to keep doing what you're doing because we don't have to convince the Erics and the Mike Cesaks of the world. That's not who, I'm not going to call my good friends far gone. I'm going to say that, though they're pretty damn close to having their minds fried by that level of indoctrination. What I will say is whenever they're there, we will be here to say welcome aboard. That's all I want them to know. When they finally allow themselves to think, we'll be there for them, and I know you will as well. Anything else, Ray, before we move on?
I mean, I could go on and on, but I will say that at least black people, we got the power, especially in the state of Texas. There's over 1 million of us that
Hmm.
can pull any of these races in one direction or the other. So either you're going to be counted or you're going to let them do the counting. And if they do the counting, you might not get another chance.
Yep, yep, yep. And that's the issue, right? People can say, "Oh, Trump won't do this. Trump won't do that." Trump said he would, and we've seen all the Republicans fall in line, even the ones that once hated him. So therefore, anybody who tells you with a straight face, Trump is just saying that he wouldn't do it. Recall that how people fell in line, how the Republicans are lockstep in lockstep with him. We can't take the chance. We simply cannot take the chance. So you keep doing what you're doing, Ray, and you keep getting to your crowd. You're a young man. You have a big job on and between now and the start of the election, which is it goes on for probably 30, 40 days. You have a lot of work to do, just like I have a lot of work to do, just like every progressive have a lot of work to do. So thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you for that little conversation you had back out there in Chicago. But I want to show you something real quick. You went to Chicago, right? The first thing that Eric
Right.
said is, Eric, it just shows you the mentality. The first thing he thought about is if you went to Chicago, if you got shot or something like that, right? It just shows you how silly. Chicago is likely safer than most red state cities. I mean, Chicago is full of wealthy people living the life, going out and having parties and all of that. Just fine. They've caged the
Yeah.
areas that really have crime. They've caged it in. You don't have a problem in Chicago, but in the red states, you do.
Yeah.
My
Oh,
God,
and by
thank
the
you.
way,
Yes.
Chicagoans, and just to leave this little nugget of information, they're making at least $16 an hour minimum wage. So there's that. There's less motivation to want to have crime because you actually are making enough money to support yourself.
Yeah, and it's funny because TV is going to show you, oh, 5 gangbangers killed each other, 10 gangbangers killed each other. Well, yeah, that is segregated into particular areas of Chicago. But red states and these other places, it's crazy. But thank you, Ray. You have a wonderful rest of your day, my brother.
All right, I'll keep watching. Take care.
Take care now. All right. So yeah, Eric, may I say as kindly as I can, grow up or think, maybe. All right. Melissa Bowie says the People's Chat Corner. Medicaid is a Title 9, no, a Title 19 of the Social Security Act. Act added to Social Security in 1965. Purpose is to provide matching federal funds to all states. And then she says, so that means Texas refuses to add their part to it, but the money is there. WTF? Let me explain that to you. It's not so, as I recall, oh yeah, you did say Medicaid. I thought, for some reason, I thought I read Social Security. The Affordable Care Act, when it was written, they made some changes to it, but then Senator Kennedy died. And when Senator Kennedy died, they could not get the amendments to the Medicare to the Obamacare bill, the Affordable Care Act passed when he died. So everybody thought it was dead. Oh, the Obamacare is dead. And Nancy Pelosi, when I tell you that woman saved the Affordable Care Act, don't look at any of the guys around. Don't look at Obama. Don't look at any of them. You take a look at what Nancy Pelosi did back in 2010. Nancy Pelosi said, okay, here's what we do. We got the 67 votes in the Senate for this bill. And that bill did not include the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act in the form that we wanted it. So what she did is she did say, what we'll do is pass the other bill as a standard appropriation bill. I don't remember what they call those types of bills. But the problem with that is even though those bills had to be done, can be done with just a majority vote, which they had, it meant that as soon as a Republican comes in, they can overturn it. Okay? So there are a lot of things that should have been law that turned out to be law as long as Democrats were in power. Now, when it comes to this part of the bill with what Texas is doing, Texas just shows that our Republican politicians are murderers because a lot of people who should have health insurance right now, they don't. Because the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, that's what you're talking about, Melissa. The Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. What happened there? Texas decided that they didn't want to take that up. And as such, every Texan is paying into that fund. Every single Texan is paying into that fund. But no Texan, no poor Texan gets to take advantage of the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, so they stay without health care. They stay without insurance. Let me tell you what's worse. Here's what's worse. The first 3 years of the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, guess how much it costed the state? $0. The state paid zero, and all their poor people would have been insured the first 3 years. So let's say the state said, we don't want to spend that money. They could have at least given the poor people in their states, which we have a 21% of our people are uninsured. They could have said, we're going to give them, since the state doesn't have to pay, we're going to allow this to come in for those 3 years and give all those people health care for 3 years. The criminals in Austin, Texas, the Republican Congress representative said, no, we're just not going to do it. Now, here's the other thing. After those first 3 years that they got Medicaid expansion for their citizens for zero cost, the most it would cost a state is 10% thereafter. 10%! Not 100%, not 50%, not 40%. It would have cost Texas 10%. We have left over several $100 billion that did pass through our economy. And we don't hear the news media talking about that, Melissa. You brought it up. You are shocked because you hear it, Melissa. Do you think a lot of the Republican people living in the rural areas really know that the reason many of their family members are dying is because Republicans that they voted for refused to pass the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act? Do you think those rural people know? So my next contention, Melissa, is this. Why the hell aren't the Democrats saturating rural America? In Texas, we should own rural America because their hospitals are closing, Melissa. Not only are their hospitals closing, their emergency rooms, now they have to drive 40, 50, 60 minutes, if they're lucky, to get basic care. Sister, our rural brothers and sisters, because of the news media that they partake of, because of what they read, because they believe in the gullibility pushed by their pew, they get themselves harmed. Melissa, thank you for bringing that up because that gives us the opportunity. Maybe I'll make a cut out of this little rant and make it into a little clip and try to get it on some conservative boards. Thank you for bringing that up, Melissa. Thank you so kindly. I got to get out of here. I'm actually late, but I need you to please support the program, folks. How can you support the program? And we're way behind. We're way behind. I'll clip it, Mila. I'll clip it. We need your support. We can't do this without your support. This is all I've dedicated my life to doing right now, and that is inform. And if you take a look at politicsandright.com/info, you see that we put this stuff out all over the damn place because we know it has to get done. If you go to politicsandright.com/info, and I put it right here, that is what we have to, that is where all our stuff is at. So you'll see my YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everything. We have it all integrated. Make sure and share that stuff. That is how we make a difference. But if you want to support the program, all the different ways in which you can support Politics Done Right on the internet is at politicsdoneright.com/support. Remember, we do blogs, books, articles, the whole works. politicsdoneright.com/support. You can support our Patreon at politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Patreon is spelled for our podcast. For those listening on podcast, it is spelled Patreon. You can also support us by getting our books. My trio, the Mighty Trio, is what's scrolling on the screen right now. Consider getting those. I promise you'll learn from them. But most importantly, subscribe to the newsletter if you can. It's free for those who can't give Politics Done Right a coffee or so a month. But if you can, go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, and become a monthly supporter. It's cheap, a coffee, to make sure we can do what we're doing. I think I'm up to 103 subscribers right now. I need about 1,000, but we're at 103. You got to make a start somewhere, right? So please go ahead and support us however you can. I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I'm going to end this baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.